This is your girl Rania with Rise with Rania, where we live, love, and thrive. I am just overjoyed. Today is story time, and it's week number 6. All right, y'all. So here it is, guys. I am just like I've been reading all week, and I've been listening all week, and I just am so amazed at the strength. I mean, this story, what happened is just like strength. It's strength, it's revelation, it's hope, it's endurance, it's redemption. The list goes on about all the things that I'm learning through reading the book of Daniel, and why Daniel is considered one of the greatest, when you think about a character in the Bible. And so I want to take you just a snippet of what we've been doing over the course of weeks 1 through 5 as we've been doing the book of Daniel. But I'm going to jump right on into chapter 6. I want you to take the time to pull out your own Bible, read the Bible, read what it says, or you can go back to all of the different story time sessions that I've had for chapters 1 through 5. And we will, and you'll get some viewings of that through chapter 1 through 5. So 1 through 5 is all about the story and just kind of how Daniel got to Babylon, and how he has sort of journeyed through his journey there, and the wisdom that God has given him, and how he shared different visions, and was able to give interpretation to different dreams, different writings on the wall. I mean, the story goes on, and he also was connected with some really, really powerful people during this time, including some of his brothers, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and how they showed up in this season when they had to be placed in the fiery furnace, and how they basically said, we will not pray to anyone else than our holy God and the God of Israel. And how God showed up in that time in the king Nebuchadnezzar, how he was able to see once again how God is who he say he is, and how holy he is, and how he's the one true only God. And so then there's like kind of the journey of that, as Nebuchadnezzar still goes down his path of reaching to that point where he is like, oh yeah, this is the holy God. And he gets to that point, and sort of what happens in that. And then there's the next king who goes through the process, who did not learn from Nebuchadnezzar, and he never learns. And so he had a small reigning in Babylon. And here we are in chapter 6, and we are going over King Darius, who is one of the Medes who took over the kingdom, and he was at the age of 62. So this is the story of Daniel in the den of lions. And so you hear this story even when you think about like Sunday school, or the stories you learned about, he was in the den, and the lions didn't attack him. But how did he get there, and why did he get there? And I think that's important to understand. So Daniel, or Darius, King Darius, he was appointed, and at the time he wanted to make some changes to his to the kingdom, and how he wanted to manage it and administratively organize it differently. So he wanted to appoint 120 different, they say satraps, or different people to be able to be a part of that. But he wanted 3 administrators, and guess, the one and only Daniel is one of the administrators. And the reason why they chose Daniel, and remember, Daniel is kind of like an outcast in a way, because he believes in the true holy God, the God of Israel, and all the other folks believe in the God of the other gods, right? From Babylon, whether it's gold, silver, wood, and all the other things that they were believing in, and they thought to be God or the truth. So for him to have this presence in this kingdom is a big deal. And the reason why they chose him is because they said Daniel has distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by being his exceptional qualities, that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. The whole kingdom. That's a big deal. When you think about that, like I think about like how God sets us apart, and he puts us in places where he wants us to be present in those places, and that people can see who he is in those places. It's not an accident that he put us there, not only because he has gifts and talents that he wants us to use, but he wants to use us in a way that's going to capture the audience of people so that they know who God is, and he's just using us as a vessel. So here, once again, they're using Daniel in this way. They don't know, but God knows what he's doing. And so here we go. At this time, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel. Daniel had really conducted himself in a way that was exceptional. And anytime when people would try to find something that Daniel did, they couldn't find anything. And so, of course, these folks were trying to get him out of the role that he was in, because he wasn't praising the God that they wanted him to pray. And he wasn't doing the things that everyone else was doing. He was doing the assignment that God had asked him to do, and he was honoring his God, and he loved him so much, and he was not going to turn his back on him. So during that time, they could not find anything untrustworthy of him. They could not find neither any corruption that he was doing or any negligence. He was not negligent. He was a man of excellence. And so that gives me another thought. Is like, are you walking in excellence right now, even when you're surrounded by those haters, right? Pop your collar, pop your collar. Even when you're hanging around those haters, are you able to be surrounded around those haters and still operate in the spirit of excellence? And Daniel was able to do that. And so then it goes on to say that finally these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." And that's where they found the loophole. And so you'll see this as you deal with your friends, your family, your workplaces, things that you are working through. People will try to come and attack you in different ways that they can find the loophole. But again, who always reigns over all of that? And that's why this story is so beautiful. So let's keep going on. So then it goes on to talk about, so the administrators and the satraps went as a group to the king and said, "O King Darius, live forever. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or man during the next 30 days, except to you, O God, shall be thrown into the lion's den." So that's where the lion dens come from. Basically, they put a law in, and the law basically said if you pray to any other god except this king, King Darius, during this 30-day time frame, you will be thrown into the den of lions. And that was it. And so King Darius went on, and they basically tricked him to sign this law. And so he signed the law. And then now, when Daniel learned about what had happened and the law that was put in place, what do you think Daniel did? Maybe you can ask yourself that as I'm asking you this. Did he turn away and say, "I cannot pray the prayers that I have been doing 3 days, three times per day? I'm not going to do it anymore"? Did he decide to pray to another god? Did he decide to just not pray anymore and just say, "I don't believe anymore because the laws are changed"? No, Daniel did not. He went home, he went to town, and he was praying again. 3 times a day, he still prayed. He rolled his window down and prayed towards Jerusalem, and he continued to pray to the God of Israel. And so here he is praying, and here are those deceitful people coming after him and wanting to find him praying. And of course they did, because he wasn't going to stop. And here he is. He comes back, and they go back to Darius, and they said, "Hey, Darius, you signed this law. You got to adhere to the law that you signed. And I found your boy. He was over there praying. And he should not be praying to anyone except you for 30 days. So he's broken the law. And based on the law that you signed, he should be thrown into the lion's den." And so there you go, folks. Now Daniel is in a pickle again, where he's being challenged again. And now he's going to the lion's den because he continued to pray. All right, so let me get back to God's word here, but I wanted to kind of condense that a little bit for us. So he can continue to pray. I'll read here where it says, the king answered, the decree stands in accordance with the laws of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed. Then they said to the king, Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or to the decree you put into the writing. He still prays 3 times a day. When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. He tried really hard. He had a heart for Daniel. He wanted Daniel to be successful. He didn't want Daniel to fall into this trap, but he did not realize that these folks were already putting him into the trap and knew it was going to happen, because they even said that Daniel, he's not a man he's not a negligent man. He's going to pray to his heavenly Father. He's going to pray to the King of Israel. He's going to pray to the God Almighty, the Most High God. He's going to do that, and they counted on that, and that's exactly what happened. Although Darius didn't think through that. So when he signed it, he didn't know. So now here we are, he's faced with this, and he has no choice but to put Daniel into the lion's den. So then it goes on to say, then the people went as a group to the king and said to him, remember, O king, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no decree or law or edict that the king issues can be changed. So he couldn't change it. They literally got this king to put in a law that he can't even change, and now he's like, oh my God, what did I do? And so the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, may your God whom you serve continually rescue you. And I hope that is the case. Excuse me. So a stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it. And Daniel now is in a situation. He can't change it. And then the king returned to his palace, and that's where he spent all night just pacing. He was so worried for Daniel. He was just so hopeful, and he was just under distress because he had no choice based on the laws that he would send him to the lion's den. And those laws could not be broken based on what happened in the Medes, within the Medes and the Persians. And so here we are. First thing, light comes out. King Darius runs out of his house. He's like, I want to see what happens. Did the God he served save him? Did he save him? I want to see what happens. And sure enough, he gets there to the lion's den, and he screams out before he even opens up the lion's den and says, Daniel, did your God save you? And he says, he sure did save me. He saved me. And I can put it in my words, but I'm going to read it here. What Daniel says, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to rescue from the lions? That's what King Darius said. And he answered and said, O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. So he didn't just say, I'm going to be over here playing with the lions, and the lions are going to have them out. God did what he needed to do. He sent an angel down from heaven to the place and shut their mouths closed, so they couldn't even try to attack him if they wanted to. There was no temptation. There was no ability. He closed it down. And that's how awesome he is, and what he does when he knows that he's a child of God and he wants him to be saved and not have to even deal with the temptations or the chaos that can come from being inside of a den. When God knows, it doesn't even say here how many lions were in the den, but sure enough, they were not able to touch him. So he goes on to say, they have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. And I think that's a key thing. He goes, I was found innocent in his sight. He said he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. And he says, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, King Darius, O king. And so the king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. So let's say that again. He trusted in his God. He went to the den, the lion's den, and he continued. I'm sure even in that den he was praying, and he trusted that God would take care of all of it. And he sure enough did. So the king at the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lions. And trip this out, y'all. They were thrown into the lion's den, and before they could even like close the lion's den, they had already been devoured by the lion. All of those men had already been devoured. They were done. They didn't even last a second. But here you go, Daniel, overnight, the angels came down, closed their mouth. He comes out of this, one person, and he has not one nick on his body. He's no wound or anything, and he was saved. And so imagine what these people are thinking and what they have seen and been able to witness. I mean, if I was a fly on the wall, I would be like, to me, it's like a no-brainer. Like, we don't even get to see, some of these things, but we believe. And here they are seeing, pattern after pattern, kingship after kingship, and they're seeing all of these things happening. And here you go. And this is what King Darius says. And I love, this is like the best part of this whole story, you guys. He says, let me start over here. He says, then King Darius wrote to all of the peoples, nations, and men of every language throughout the land. He goes, may you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. So he let it be known, like, oh, you know what? We're going to change this up a bit. Okay? And he goes, for he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus and the Persians. And that's how we go through the chapter 7. I want to bring up something before we close chapter 6 up, because this is King Darius, okay? Remember when we were in chapter 5, we were with Belshazzar, King Belshazzar, and King Belshazzar just never came to the point of like, I'm going to honor this God, and he's the Most High God. He never even had a period of time. He had a short reign, and he was done, right? He came, and that's when the Medes and the Persians came and he was slain, and he didn't have time. Daniel told him he had some revelation through the writing on the wall, but he still was like, thank you for this information. Let me give you a purple robe. Let me give you all of this gold. This was information that was good, but he never did anything to it. So this is why this week has been so good for me, because I got a lot of revelation from this. And the reason why is I'm going to go back to chapter 4, and I think that this is really, really good. And the reason why it's so good is because look what King Nebuchadnezzar says. King Nebuchadnezzar was the journey between chapter 1 through 4. And King Nebuchadnezzar saw a lot of cool things that God had done. And he saw the revelation, and he saw how he revealed so many things to Daniel, and how these men that he had brought over, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, had literally been saved by the holy God, the Most High God. But yet he still had to go through his own season. But at the end of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he said one thing, or he said something that was very powerful. He said, at the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. He goes, his dominion is eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. Go back to chapter 7. Go back to chapter 7 to end. He goes, his dominion will never end. Same thing. His dominion is eternal. And then he goes on, King Nebuchadnezzar says, it endures generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does it as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hands or say to him, what have you done? And so what he is saying, and then towards the bottom, if you read on, is chapter 4, verse 37. He says, now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, as he is able to humble. So 2 kings of the 3 that we've read about so far have decided, And they went off and told people and shared and said, hey, we got to get it together. So I wanted to share that with you all because there is a theme that's happening here. That if you think about how Daniel is living his life, he is attracting people because of just purely living in stewardship and doing the things that God has called him to do. And that is just to love people and be righteous and try to do your best. He did his best dealing with all of these things that were happening around him. And even in all of that, people saw his God. That's why they said the God of Daniel. And so think about this. I want you to ask yourself this question. Let's say you had to you had an interaction with somebody. Would you leave them with Rania the God? Or do you want to leave them with the God of Rania? The God of Rania is who saved her. The God of Rania is who got her a promotion. The God of Rania is who blessed her with a beautiful family. The God of Rania is who impregnated her and gave her a baby with her husband. The God of Rania is the one who saved her when she should have been dead a long time ago. So I just want to leave you with that, you guys. It really just makes you think about like how both parties left, their season and honoring the God of Daniel. So as we navigate life and as we continue to go on, I want you to think of Daniel and how he operated, but I also want to think about just how awesome, powerful God is. It's not just about the lion's den. It's about who was able to see how Daniel stood firm on what he believed and how their lives were transformed because of it. My God. All right, you guys. There's something new to learn, and I'm sure, like I said, and I started with, there's new revelation you're going to get through all of this. So just share with me, what did you get from this today? All right, y'all. Thanks for joining me in Storytime. I will see you all next week. This is your girl, Rania, with Rise with Rania, where we live, love, and thrive. I'll talk to you all later.